The presentation is titled Nutrition Considerations for Older Adults. Learn simple ways to support your energy, strength, and overall health. We're all looking to do that, right? Forward PT will cover how nutrition needs change with age, food that supports bones, heart, and muscles, easy meal and snack ideas, and tips for staying hydrated. How many of you brought a water bottle with you today? Oh yes, you should be drinking often and actually going to the bathroom often. It's okay. Just remember that. All right, on that note, here are our presenters. Thank you.
Hello, thank you guys for being here today. My name is Michelle. I'm a physical therapist at Forward, and this is Tyler, another one of our PTs. And we are going to chat with you guys about some nutrition specific for the older adult population. So, who are we? We are Forward Physical Therapy. Our location is in Fitchburg. We have one in Edgerton as well. Yes, we did teach you how to fall. I remember you. Nice to see you again. Yeah, we've been here a few times. We've done a couple different presentations. We did a one rep max living presentation, and then we did a falls seminar here as well. And now we're doing some nutrition. We have a couple more planned through the rest of the year, so we'd love to see you guys back. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to just raise your hand and ask them as we go. But yeah, we are Forward Physical Therapy. We have a location in Edgerton and in Fitchburg. And Tyler and I primarily work out of our Fitchburg location. Tyler does both. But we treat anything from aches and pains to post-operative care to balance and strength. And then we also talk a lot about nutrition with our patients, especially our older adult patients. So what we're going to go through today, we are going to talk about why nutrition is important. Why does this matter to me? Then we're going to talk about protein. Protein, if you're going to take one thing away from this presentation, we hope that it's protein. So we'll talk about that, why it matters, what it does for you, and the amount that you should be trying to consume on a daily basis. Then Tyler will talk about some supplementation, what the most appropriate supplements are and what are worth your time versus maybe not worth your time. We'll talk about food quality over quantity, and also just types of foods that are more appropriate for you to think about purchasing and eating and consuming on a regular basis. And then again, hydration, water bottles, we love it. And then processed foods, inflammation, how that impacts your life and your health. And then how can I implement this on a regular basis into daily practice? So, importance of nutrition. It is so important that we are eating whole foods, real foods, because it helps so much with muscle maintenance, bone health, immune function, preventing chronic disease. As we get older, we start to lose muscle mass, we start to lose function, and things start to become a lot harder for us. And if there's something that we can do to help maintain that muscle mass, that bone mineral density, and maintain your function for a longer period of time, I'm going to do it, and I think we all should do it. So we're going to talk about the best things for improving muscle mass and your strength, so that you can keep doing the things that you want to do throughout your life. Play with your grandkids, garden, maybe you like to play pickleball. We want you to be able to do those things for as long as you live. And so how can we do that? What can we do in your diet, in the aspect of your diet and nutrition, to help promote that? Immune function, eating healthy and eating real foods really helps with your immune function. It can help you recover from illness instead of it becoming a hospitalization. It can help reduce inflammation in your body and help you feel have more energy in your day. And then helps prevent chronic diseases, whether that's type 2 diabetes, whether it's heart disease. The food choices that we make impact those diseases as well. And then cognitive function. There's actually a supplement that we'll talk about that has been growing in the research lately about its impact on cognitive improvements, especially in the older adult population, and in those with Alzheimer's and dementia. So we'll stay tuned for that one. It's coming up here pretty quickly. So So first we'll talk about protein, okay? Why is protein important? Because it is the building block of your muscles. It helps with reducing fatigue, especially if, as people get older, I think a lot of my patients, they start to complain about feeling tired or sore after they're doing a lot of their exercises. They're fatigued a lot. And we can actually get improvements in your energy with increasing your protein. We're going to talk about how much is enough. I've got a next slide here, and then just different kinds of protein and what that might look like. So the recommended dosage or recommended amount that we should have, and sorry that this is a little small for you, but I'll try to simplify it. So this might be a little confusing with the grams per kilogram because we do a lot of things in pounds, right? So I'll get there with what that looks like for body weight. So general population is 0.8 grams per kilogram, which only 50% of older adults are hitting those numbers on a regular basis. So a lot of older adults especially are under eating on the protein end. Now, for older adults, we want to actually be getting more. Your body requires more protein, okay? So we want you to eat more like 1 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight per day, which essentially is half or 0.5 grams per pound. So say you're 200 pounds, half of that. So half your body weight in protein, that would be 100 grams of protein per day. Some of you may have no idea where you stand when it comes to protein intake. Maybe you've never tracked this, you've never even thought about it ever. I challenge you to try to track for a couple of days and just see where you are. Don't try not to make any changes. Don't try to be like, oh, I'm going to eat more protein now because I'm trying to see where I'm at. Just see where you're at. Just eat normally and track it. Whether you use an app to track, and we can talk about that if you have specific questions. We can always recommend certain apps or certain ways to track that. You can always look it up online too, like how many grams of protein is in this, 6 ounces of chicken, and kind of measure out that protein and just see where you fall for the day, right? Are you close to half your body weight, or are you not even close? Are you at 30 grams, right? Because we want you to be closer up to that, 70, 80, 100 grams per day. So I challenge you to try to track for a couple of days and see if you're close, if you're not really that close, and how we can make some changes in, when we go to the grocery store and when we shop and what we're looking for, to try and increase that a little bit. It may include a little bit of supplementation as well. Ultimately, these are going to be your best options for increasing protein. We've got, obviously, animal products, beef, chicken, pork, fish, eggs. And then if you are, it is a little bit harder to get the protein up if you are a vegetarian or say a vegan, right? It's a little bit more challenging to find those sources of protein, and you might have to eat a little bit more of the things that are dense in protein, like beans or lentils or things like that. But it is doable. But cottage cheese, yogurt, tofu, all that, yeah, feel free to take pictures of the screen if you need to. But these are really good food sources that are quality foods, real foods, versus, a protein bar. And I'm not saying that protein bars are necessarily bad. We may need to supplement with some protein powder or something like that. Like a whey protein powder, 1 scoop of that gives you 25 grams. It bumps you up a little bit. And if you're having a really hard time getting your protein from these kinds of foods, I would say let's start here, try to increase this. But if you're already doing this and you're still a little bit short, then maybe we want to supplement with a little bit of whey protein or powder that you can mix in water or milk or something like that. But we can kind of get into the weeds a little bit here when it comes to like a protein bar or the type of drink that you're buying. A lot of them have added stuff to the ingredients where your ingredient list is like, 30 things long and you can't pronounce any of the words, and it has a ton of other stuff added into it. It's not just protein, and it has a lot of extra added calories. So be careful when looking for those kind of things. But it may be appropriate for certain people depending on the situation.
Got a sample here of what you're talking about.
Oh, what is that?
These are made good organic granola bites, but the list of contents is,
A million things long?
yeah.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even know what they are.
Yeah, probably not. That's fair. That's a good point, and that's what we call like a processed food. And Tyler's going to go into that a little bit about reading labels and what processed foods are versus real foods. And obviously, you can't completely. I mean, you can completely eliminate it, but it's really hard to. And it's always in moderation with things like that. But it's definitely, I hope that this, if you get anything, from this, to maybe just pay a little bit more attention when you are buying things, to look at the nutrition label and see what it says, see what the ingredient list says. If it's like, oh, the ingredient is, protein or whatever, like that's the only ingredient, great. But if it's like, 40 things of all these things that you can't explain, then that gets a little bit more into the weeds of the process stuff, and Tyler will go into depth on that a little bit more and why that matters. As we get into supplements here, the first one we're going to talk about is creatine, and this is kind of what I was referring to before with the memory improvements. So creatine is heavily researched, and there's a lot more research coming up recently. Specifically, there was one in 2025 that came out, so just last year, at the end of the year, that talked about increasing or taking creatine on a daily basis to help improve memory and cognition. So creatine is being shown to improve memory, attention time, and information processing speed. And it has shown to help those that already have, Alzheimer's or already have diagnosis of that they have had improvements in their memory, which is really, really cool that a supplement like this has been shown to do that. And so I really recommend this supplement a lot of times for my older adult patients. And honestly, I take creatine every day. And I know a lot of people that do. It also helps to, build and maintain muscle mass, especially when combined with resistance training. Question?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because I had my annual physical a couple of weeks ago, and I've been hearing about the creatine benefits. And I asked my physician about it, and she wasn't bad mouthing it, but she kind of discouraged me from taking it because of the risk of kidney disease.
Yeah, there's been no known research to show that there's a negative effect on kidney function. It is safe unless you are, actively in kidney failure. Then yes, it would be, we wouldn't really want you to take it. But if your kidneys are functioning fine, there's been nothing that has shown its negative effect on kidney function.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's 5 to 8 grams.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yes, the recommendation is 5 to 8 grams per day of creatine. And there's more developing research in terms of how much creatine is needed. That's general recommendation, be like minimum 5 grams a day to get some of those benefits from a health standpoint.
Usually if you buy like a tub of creatine, it's just kind of like a powder. It's not you can get unflavored. You can just mix it with water or whatever. But it's just it's an unflavored powder you can buy. Put it in your water, mix it in whatever you want, your coffee, and the serving size of it, it's has a scoop, and the serving size is almost always 5 grams. So if you look on the back, it'll be like 5 grams is 1 scoop, and that's a serving size. So you shouldn't have to measure it out on a scale. 1 scoop will be the serving size.
So it does not exist in pill form?
No, I think it does. Yeah, there are some pills. There's some gummies and stuff like that. There's a bunch of different types of creatine, but then ultimately it's like the powder. If you look at the ingredients, right, the ingredient is creatine monohydrate. Sometimes if you get the gummies, there'll be some added sugar in those, just like they are with the vitamins and stuff like that. It's very minimal, but if you're having a hard time getting it down or you don't like to take the powder, it's another option. You can take it in pill form. Yep.
Any other questions on creatine? Yes.
It's a food supplement, right?
So with supplements, there's a lot of differences in terms of like regulation. The supplement industry as a whole is not super well regulated. In general, creatine is by far the most researched supplement, basically, of all time. There's a ton of different research on it, and there's a ton of different people that produce creatine products. So main thing that we're looking for with that is in creatine supplementation, you'll see in the powders, the only ingredient listed on there is creatine monohydrate. So there's nothing else added to it where I'd be concerned about having any like negative stuff added to it or any extra filler. Yes.
I've read where, or seen where supplements in general, there's different manufacturers that certain ones are recommended. And I'm not sure who makes those recommendations or how valid they are.
There's a lot of different third-party testing that goes into certain supplements. So when you're checking supplements, there'll be different, like NSF is a big one, like the National Sport Foundation, where if it's NSF certified, it's basically a third-party company that is tested to make sure the exact amount that is on the label is in the product. So when you're looking and you see that certification on there, it means there's been some testing from a third-party standpoint that the supplement is indeed what it says it is. So that'd be something to look for with any form of supplement. All right. Moving on from creatine, if you have any more questions, we can get to those later. Next supplement we generally recommend for older adult populations is vitamin B12. So this is one of those things that is super important just in terms of our immune function, our nervous system function. And as we get older, we are not able to absorb this vitamin as readily through food consumption. So especially if you're on certain different medications, it can actually inhibit your body's ability to absorb vitamin B12. So if you're having some fatigue or just general like malaise, this is one area that you should address and bring up with your primary care provider to see if supplementation is something that could be right for you. Last supplement here is vitamin D. So this is one that we primarily get from sunlight. So 90% of the vitamin D that we get comes from sunlight. The extra 10% comes from diet. So as we get older, we tend to, especially if function is declining, we're not getting outside as much, we're not getting as much sunlight, we can start to become a little more deficient in vitamin D. So that's an area where, to bridge that gap, vitamin D supplementation can be something to help with that. Vitamin D is important for a ton of different bodily functions, one of which is vitamin D deficiency is linked to sarcopenia, which is essentially loss of muscle mass as we age. So supplementing with vitamin D can help to mitigate some of those negative effects throughout that aging process.
Is there a recommended amount?
Yes. So the recommended dose for this, on here, for recommended dose for individuals over 70 years old is 800 IU. So any like vitamin D supplement you see will have an IU listed, which is international units. This recommendation is not set in stone. It's just kind of a baseline there. Each vitamin D supplement will typically have more than that in there because you're not going to fully digest everything in it. Some of it does not get absorbed in your system.
Was there, did I miss it? Was there a recommended amount with the B12 too?
So there's not a specific amount with
Oh.
that. That'd be something I would have you talk to your primary care provider about. Any
Okay.
form of like supplement, it's always a good idea to run that through your primary care doctor, just to make sure with medications or anything you may be on, there's not some other mechanism or consequences that come with that. So in general with supplementation, I always recommend talking to your doctor just to make sure there's no medication interactions that go on with that. All right, so moving on from supplementation to more of the quality food choices. This is gonna be where the majority of your nutrition is coming from. And just like from a health and wellness standpoint, what are we putting in our body on a day-to-day basis and how can we improve the quality of those things? So, big picture, Michelle touched on this already, is trying to eat whole, unprocessed, kind of quote-unquote real foods. So, think about when you're at the grocery store, you're trying to shop around the perimeter of the store. Once you get to those middle aisles, most stuff is heavily packaged, it comes in boxes, and it's pre-made, ready to eat. In general, with those whole food products, it's gonna be stuff that you have to do a little bit of work to prepare. So think about like fruits, vegetables, where you have to like cut them up ahead of time. There's meat, you have to cook it. Whole grains, there's like rice, you have to obviously like make the rice. And then healthy fats. So think about in general for quality food from a grocery store standpoint, trying to shop around the perimeter of the store, think about things you have to prepare ahead of time to make. It's not something you can just grab and eat immediately. Moving on to hydration. So obviously touched already, water bottles, drinking water throughout the day is super important. How much of that is enough? So in general, you want to be drinking half of your body weight in ounces at a minimum of water throughout the course of the day. So if you can take one thing away from a protein and water standpoint, take your body weight, cut that in half. You're trying to hit that much for protein and also water consumption. The reason hydration, yes?
Can that be in different forms than just water? What type of?
Yes.
Count?
So short answer is yes, it can be in different forms. Obviously, once we start getting into different beverage types, it can get a little bit down into some weeds in terms of what you're consuming. Like if you're drinking coffee all day, it's probably not going to be as great as drinking water because it's going to go through your system a lot faster. You're just going to peel a lot of it out. If you're drinking like a lot of soda, there's going to be a lot of other stuff that goes in with that in terms of sugars and other ingredients. So in general, if you can, try to drink just plain water. If it's really hard to just drink plain water, there are some things you can add into it that are lower calorie, not a ton of additives, even just like fruit juice. Like if you have lemon juice or lime juice or some form of fruit in your water, it can add a little bit extra flavor to that and help with getting some water down throughout the day. Yes?
When you said how much is enough, is one half your body weight in something?
In ounces.
Ounces, okay.
Yes. So if you have a water bottle, usually they have an amount of ounces on there. So say you're 200 pounds, you need to drink 100 ounces a day. Most like regular water bottles are 12 to 18 ounces. So you can kind of do the math from there in terms of how many water bottles do I need to drink during the day to hit that number. All right, so with hydration, why is it so important? So water is crucial for just about every bodily function that we have. If we're dehydrated, we start to notice a lot of decline in some of those bodily systems. You can just be more lethargic, your immune system can take some hits, and you just generally don't feel super great on a day-to-day basis. Also, in older adults specifically, it can significantly increase your risk of having a fall. So when you're dehydrated and you stand up, and we start to get some of that like lightheadedness or dizziness come on, it can lead to falls from that. So when we're dehydrated, that can become more prevalent because our blood pressure drops when we stand up and we have some other things that start to happen. So adding that hydration piece and focusing on that can help to reduce the risk of falls throughout the day. Also, as we get older, we tend to not get the same thirst sensations throughout the course of the day. So because of that, we tend to not drink quite as much water as you did when you were younger, just because your body's not telling you that it's thirsty quite as often. So because of that, we tend to just not consistently drink throughout the day, and we tend to under drink water. All right, so I already touched on this a little bit. How much is enough? Half your body weight in ounces.
Sources.
You do that in a 12-hour day. What about right before you go to bed?
Yes, so with water consumption, try ideally to space it out over the course of the day. I don't want you to, right before bed, like, all right, I haven't had any water today, I'm gonna chug a gallon of water, and then you wake up 6 times in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. That's obviously not ideal. I want you to still sleep. You should be going to the bathroom regularly throughout the day. You shouldn't be trying to backload all that water at the end of your day. Yes.
Question about decaf coffee.
Yes. So with coffee, it's obviously still drinking fluid.
Yep.
It's still going to have some diuretic effects where it's going to go through your system faster.
Okay,
So you're not going to be getting as hydrated as if it was just regular water.
gotcha.
Is there any
Yes.
benefit to drinking a cup of coffee a day?
I'm biased, but yes. I love coffee. I think all of us love coffee. So
There's benefits to caffeine, yeah, supplementation essentially is what that is, right? It's coffee, especially if it's caffeine, but yeah, there could be.
Yes, so you're still getting fluid intake with that, it's just not gonna be as hydrating as water would be.
How's milk?
Milk, that's gonna be, you're still getting fluid in, but also you're adding a lot of calories with milk. So there's kind of that trade-off there. Ideally, for hydration purposes, water is gonna be the go-to. All right, so what are some signs of dehydration? Like, all right, I feel like I don't drink enough water. What are some things that can be impacted with that? So first one is obviously if we're having like a dry mouth, you just generally feel parched a little bit more frequently throughout the day. Another one already touched on in terms of risk of falls is we can have some dizziness that starts to come on if we're not getting enough water throughout the day. Additionally, there can also just be some general confusion. So if you're just feeling a little bit off, it could be a sign like, hey, I'm gonna try to drink some water and see if that helps. Also, fatigue, if you're just like, hey, I'm really tired and I don't know why, try to drink some water, see if that helps. And then the last one, I'm sure most of you are familiar with, when you're going to the bathroom, if your pee looks really dark, you should probably drink more water. All right, now moving on to processed foods, added sugars, and why are we recommending not consuming as much of those? What are the risks associated with that? In general, with processed foods, whenever you have those foods you're intaking that the ingredient list is super long, what tends to happen with that is we're not getting the same nutrient density in those products. It's pre-made, it's ready to eat, it's meant to taste good, but it may not be giving your body all of those nutrients that you want. So because of that, what can happen is we start to just get general kind of low-grade inflammation that's kind of lingering in our body. As we get older, sure, like arthritis is a thing that's very prevalent. If we're always dealing with low-grade inflammation, that can exacerbate a lot of those arthritis symptoms that you're having throughout the day. So if we can avoid some of these processed foods, avoid some of the added sugar and stick to those whole foods, a lot of times that can aid in mitigating the pains and aches throughout the day that are associated with arthritis. All right. Also, from a processed food standpoint, it usually doesn't fill you up quite as much. So think about if you try to eat 100 calories worth of broccoli versus like a candy bar, which one are you going to feel more full after eating? It's probably going to be the broccoli, and you're chewing for a lot longer. There's not as many calories, and your body's just going to feel more full when you're eating those whole foods versus the processed foods. Because of that, over time, we tend to notice weight gain with those processed foods because you're just intaking more calories throughout the day, not feeling quite as full. Another thing that can happen is spikes in your blood sugar. So a lot of times with processing in those food products, they're trying to make it taste good so it's palatable. And what they tend to do with that is add in some form of sugar to that. So with that, if you have diabetes or you're pre-diabetic, your blood sugar is going to be on a roller coaster throughout the day versus being more of that steady state that we want. And that can have a drastic impact on your energy levels. And the last one is cardiovascular issues. So in terms of like heart health, if we're constantly dealing with that low-grade inflammation, constantly just putting sugar products in our body, it can have a pretty substantial impact on cardiovascular health over time. Yes?
What are added sugars? Is there a wide variety of types of things they can plug in?
There are a ton of different like sweetener products. So the main one is obviously like, if you look at a nutrition label, it'll say how much added sugar is in the product. There's also a bunch of different things that are put in foods to sweeten it. So think about like monk fruit or stevia and those types of things. They're not going to be as detrimental, but similar concept. They're adding stuff in to make it palatable and taste good, not necessarily to add any nutritional content to you.
If you look at like a nutrition label, like for example, if you're looking at, like say for example, we're looking at like dried fruit or something, and it's dried mango, and you look at the nutrition facts, you might be able to see, or you will be able to see, if they, like sometimes the package, they'll add sugar to the mango, and so then you'll see, it'll say sugars, and then it'll say, 32 grams of sugar per serving, and then underneath that, it'll say added sugars, 26 grams. So you know they added 26 grams of sugar per serving, versus if you look at a different package of dried mango, and they have they have not added anything, it'll just say sugar, 15 grams or whatever, and if it doesn't have any added sugar listed underneath it, then you know that sugar is from the mango, the fruit of the mango, having, sugar in it, because fruit does have natural sugar in it, versus it being added on top of that. Does that make sense? So it'll always say, or I think it's required for them to put added sugar underneath the sugar label.
So what are some easy ways that we can start to swap out some of those processed foods for more of those whole foods throughout the day? So on the right is more of like that highly processed foods that we're trying to stay away from. On the left are some easy things you can try to just substitute to reduce some of that inflammatory process throughout the day and also just add less calories to your day that can help with some weight loss. So first one, if you're a soda drinker, and soda has a decent amount of calories in it. Obviously, there are some diet sodas that don't, but there's still going to be some of that inflammatory process and some of the blood sugar ups and downs with that. Easy substitution. It's like, hey, I just want some carbonation. I want something a little different during the day. Sparkling water, or just adding some form of like a little bit of sweetener, like fruit, to your water can help to satisfy that without having the impact that soda would have on your blood sugars. If you have a sweet tooth, like really enjoy candy, so like Halloween candy is your favorite thing in the world, an easy way we can substitute is like fruit also is going to have sugar in it, but it's going to be a lot less calorically dense. Also, in my opinion, fruit just tastes better than candy. Also, last one, frozen dinners here. So how many of you regularly have like a frozen meal? Okay, so if you regularly have frozen meals, if you ever look at the nutrition label on that, I want you to look at the amount of sodium that is added into those. So with that, there's a very large amount of sodium. It's usually over 1,000 milligrams of salt added to those frozen meals, and that adds up pretty quick, especially if you have some cardiovascular stuff going on. If we're making that meal at home, you're never going to add that amount of salt to a meal. It'd be very hard to put that much salt into whatever you're eating. So ideally, we're trying to make food at home as much as possible and make stuff that you have to prepare a little bit. So what are some ways that we can start to add in these whole unprocessed foods throughout the day? First one, this is one that I really like doing, and it helps me personally, is trying to plan or prep your meals ahead of time. So a lot of times when it's the day of and life gets busy, the last thing you want to do is chop vegetables and like make a meal. So the more that you can do ahead of time, the easier it's going to make that throughout the course of the week. So whether that's, all right, on Saturday every week, I'm going to cut all my vegetables for the week, so when I want to make a meal, I have vegetables pre-cut, and I don't have to take that extra 5 minutes to chop up the vegetables to put in the meal. And I can just grab them from the fridge and throw them in a pan. Another one, from a prep standpoint and planning standpoint, try to have your week laid out in terms of what you're going to eat ahead of time. So it's not, you're sitting around on like a Wednesday afternoon, it's like, well, I have no idea what to eat. I'm just going to grab like 2 protein bars or something like that and just kind of snack on those versus actually sitting down and having a high quality meal. We've all been in this situation where it's like, oh, there's a frozen pizza in the freezer. I'm just going to grab that and eat that. Ideally, trying to avoid that situation, make it as easy as possible on yourself. Next one, in terms of implementation strategies, is like Michelle talked about before, when you go to the grocery store, I challenge you to try to read some of the labels of the things that you're buying. If you just look at that nutrition label, you can see on there, it'll have the serving size, it'll have how many calories are in it, and it'll have the added sugars in those foods. If you just look at 3 things, you can get a pretty good understanding of kind of what you're putting in your body. Like, you'd be surprised how many calories are in certain things and how much sugar they put in certain foods throughout the day. So when you're at the grocery store, just being aware of that, being conscious of those things that you're purchasing can start to deter you away from those products. Next one, try to incorporate variety. So eating the same thing on repeat can get pretty boring. So try to vary that a little bit day to day. So it's not always the same thing on repeat. Some people don't need to do that as much, and you're fine eating the same thing every day. But next one, try new things. So it's like, hey, I have never had, what's a good fruit for this? What's a fruit you haven't had?
Ooh,
Dragon fruit. So there you go. I haven't had a dragon fruit before, but you're curious about it. Find some of those things around the perimeter of the grocery store, vegetables, fruits, things you may not have tried before, and try to add some variety to that. It's always good to keep yourself on your toes, try new things, and you may find something that you like and makes that eating healthy a little bit easier for you. Next one, nobody's perfect with this. Everything in moderation is completely fine. Think about, in general, like 80% of the time, try to eat quote unquote healthy. 20% of the time, life happens. Don't deprive yourself of things that you enjoy, because in the long run, if you are super restrictive with your diet, like, all right, I'm never gonna have candy again, usually what ends up happening is you're fine for a little bit, and then you have a day where you just shove all of the candy into your mouth. So, restriction is not super great. Everything in moderation. Just in general, most of the time, try to eat on the healthier side of things. Last one is just try to make very small daily changes. So small change over time is going to be the easiest way to maintain that. If you try to do a complete dietary overhaul tomorrow, the odds that you fall off are going to be significantly higher. Then it's like, all right, for next week, all I'm going to do is just track my protein, see where I'm at. Depending on that, I'm just going to try to add a little bit more protein the next week. And just those small tweaks over time are going to be the best thing for your long-term health. All right, so here's a good diagram in terms of building a healthy eating routine as you get older. So basically trying to choose a mix of healthy foods. So think about, you have your whole fruits, apples, berries, oranges, mangoes, all those types of things. Your vegetables, so trying to have like some form of like leafy green, salad, something like that. Your whole grains, so like rice, oatmeal, a little bit of bread, a little bit of pasta, and then protein, as Michelle touched on. And that would be the big one. If there's one takeaway for today, eat more protein. All right, so in general, recap, once again, just to overemphasize it, protein, try to prioritize that. Eat whole foods, stay hydrated, limit the amount of processed foods that you're putting in your diet throughout the course of the week, and then trying to keep those changes simple and sustainable over time. Long-term consistency is going to be much better than any form of a crash diet. So small daily changes over the long run is going to be the best thing.
I'd like
Yes.
to just add one thing as far as looking at labels. Look at the expiration dates on stuff.
Yes. Strongly recommend that. Yep.
Your thoughts on intermittent fasting?
Intermittent fasting works great for some people. Some people thrive with that, where it's, so if you're not familiar with what intermittent fasting is, it's, all right, for a period of the day, I'm not going to eat, and I'm going to limit my eating window to a certain amount of hours. So the common one you see is like 16 and 8, so you don't eat for 16 hours, and then you have an 8-hour window each day where you get food and where you get your calories in. Some people love that. Some people do not do as well. In general, nutrition is very individualized. So if that's something that works well for you, awesome, go for it. If you try it and you absolutely hate it and you can't stick to it, don't do it. Try something else. Whatever you can sustain for a long run or in the long term is going to be the best nutritional strategy. So you can play around with different concepts, different ideas, but try to find something that works for you consistently in the long run.
Because that does help with the blood sugar spikes, right? Yeah.
It can. A lot of it is when you limit your caloric intake to like 8 hours a day, say, you're generally going to eat less calories throughout the day. So a lot of it is, it can help with weight maintenance over time and preventing weight gain. It's also, obviously, when you're not eating for 16 hours, your blood sugar is not going to be going up and down because your body's not digesting food.
How about adding to your list, don't buy the stuff in the first place.
Yes,
If you don't have any candy in the house, you can't eat it.
correct. The easier you can make the good habits and the harder you can make the bad habits, it's going to set you up for success. So, find healthy food, try to not have the unhealthy things in the house, and it makes your life a lot easier because you're not having to use your willpower at every mealtime. All right. We'll open up the floor to questions.
Could you speak to one's metabolism as you age? Like, when I was younger, I could eat a huge plate of spaghetti. I mean, I could just eat tons and not gain any weight. But I can't seem to do that anymore. Even though I'm staying as active, if not more active when I was working. I've got horses and dogs and cats and gardens and 2 gardening jobs. So is it my imagination, or does your metabolism slow down?
So, as we get
Or is it
older,
because
our
I'm not eating enough
metabolism.
protein?
What was that?
Or is it because I'm not eating enough protein?
Combination of things, most likely. When we do get older, we tend to just not move quite as much throughout the day, so our physical activity levels tend to drop a little bit over time. So we're not burning as many calories throughout the day. And also, as we get older, our bodily processes just tend to slow down a little bit. So we may not be burning as many calories a day, one, from activity levels, and also if we don't carry as much muscle mass. Muscle is one of the primary calorie burners that we have. So when we age, we tend to start losing muscle mass over time. When we lose that muscle mass, our body just doesn't require the same level of calories every single day. So we tend to, if we're eating the same amount with less muscle mass, you're going to start to notice weight gain.
And then could you speak to protein drinks? Like, Orgain has a 30 gram per bottle, whatever brand. Are those okay as a protein provider, or?
I would say there are some good ones and there are some not so good ones.
Something to look for?
Yes, if you look at the nutrition label, I would say the biggest thing is looking at the added sugar and then look at what is in it from an ingredient standpoint. If it's like, all right, there's 2 to 3 things, it's like milk, whey protein, and that's it, awesome. If it's like, I have no idea what this says, probably not the greatest.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? Yes.
How does hydration relate to cardiovascular issues?
Okay, so with hydration and cardiovascular issues, when we are dehydrated, most bodily systems we have are impaired. So if our blood pressure is constantly all over the map, we're not super well hydrated, our body has to compensate for that in some way. So if we don't have enough fluid in our body, our blood vessels and our heart essentially have to work harder to pump fluid around the system. Over time, that can have negative effects from a cardiovascular standpoint. Kind of the oversimplification of that very complex topic. Does that make sense?
I was at the doctor's not long ago, and they always take my blood pressure, and the top number was 80. And they said, well, don't go anywhere, just wait, and they gave me a bottle of water, and it went right up.
Yes. So when we're not hydrated, we don't have as much blood volume. So that's when, if you're noticing every time you stand up, you're getting super lightheaded and things get a little fuzzy. Sometimes drinking water can reduce that and reverse that pretty quickly. Just getting more fluid in your system.
Does loss of muscle mass mean less strength to do normal activities that you were perhaps used to, or not being able to lift something quite as?
Yes. So once we get past the age of 40, we tend to notice a decline kind of every decade over time. If we're resistance training, eating a good diet, getting our protein in, we can prevent that over the course of your life. If we're not doing some of those things, that's when we start to notice that muscle loss. And over time, that can start to degrade our ability to do those functional day-to-day tasks. So maybe picking up 50 pounds when you were 20 years old was all right, it's nothing. And now it's all right, picking up 50 pounds is everything I have. If we can do some resistance training, hit our protein numbers, stay active, and build up our deadlift basically in the gym, and we can pick up 150 pounds from the floor. That 50 pounds got a heck of a lot easier. So that's where nutrition is super important for that, but also adding the resistance training component. over the course of time to prevent the muscle loss.
Or at least the rate of muscle loss. You will have muscle loss as you get older, but if we can prevent it from dropping like this and it's more slow, steady, then you're going to be doing a lot more than you would if you weren't doing resistance training or weren't eating protein.
Yes.
What's the best resistance training that we can do at home?
It's a loaded question.
Yeah.
So resistance training, I want it to be something that challenges you from a muscular standpoint. So when you're doing resistance training, you should be getting some fatigue. That can be with weights, it can be with bands, it can be with body weight, it can be with just like a squat, for example, like getting in and out of the chair. If doing it with just your body weight is super easy, but you don't necessarily have weights at home, slow it down. Go like really, really slow and controlled through that full range of motion, and you can start to challenge your muscles a couple different ways. So bands, weights, body weight, like tempoed movements. There's a ton of different ways to incorporate that. But trying to find something that you can stick with throughout the long run.
Yeah, it depends on kind of what equipment you have at home. And if you have equipment, if you don't have equipment, then we would recommend kind of doing things a little bit differently depending on that. But we like to think of it as like, would I rather have you just doing, a 3-pound bicep curl, or would I rather have you doing like an overhead press or some kind of pulling movement? There's more functional things that are, I would say, would be more appropriate if you're trying to pick the 4 most important things. We want to include some kind of pushing movement, right? So either a push out in front of you, or a press overhead, or something in between. So we're getting that pushing because it's very functional for opening doors or lifting your suitcase in an overhead compartment, right? And then we want to incorporate some kind of pull, whether it's a horizontal pull or a vertical pull. So that again would be for opening doors. And then to incorporate some kind of squat and some kind of hinge. So squatting for sitting to standing, and then hinging and strengthening that for picking things up off the ground, whether it's your cat litter or whatever. Like that stuff can get pretty heavy, right? So getting this hinge and working on that, those are all very functional things. They work multiple muscles and multiple joints at once versus just doing single isolated movements. Not that those are bad, but if we're trying to choose, what are the best things that we can incorporate on a day-to-day basis, I would say those more functional movements. And if you don't have weights, like Tyler said, trying to incorporate some tempo into things. Doing a squat really, really slow is going to challenge your muscles a lot harder than if you just sit down and stand up.
What's the best core exercise where you don't have to get on the floor?
Yeah, there's lots of different ones you can use. You could carry something heavy in your hands, like you could take weights or a bucket or something like that, stand up nice and tall, work on, bracing your core, keeping your core nice and tight, and then just walking with heavy weights, that's gonna work your core. There's so many different things, and that's kind of that's what we do. If there's certain movements that you're noticing there's weakness in, or you need more help with resistance training, we have a resistance training class at Forward. It's for older adults only, and it's on Tuesday and Thursdays at 11 a.m. Where I teach the class, another one of my coworkers, we teach it as well. And we go through a bunch of different functional movements and strength training. So if you're having a hard time like figuring out what should I be doing, how should I be doing it, I don't know if I'm moving appropriately, like come to our class and check it out and see if you find value in that. And a lot of times it's fun. I mean, it's fun to work out with other people too. It's a little bit more fun, in my opinion. And I think a lot of people will agree that it's more fun to work out with other people that are your age, kind of going through the same thing, and just having that community environment with it versus being at home and trying to do it myself. I don't have that internal motivation to do that. I have to go to some sort of class or something because otherwise I won't do it at home.
So where do you get the bands?
There's lots of places. You can get Dick's, or like you can go to any sporting goods store would have bands like that, or online, Amazon, or you can just search it online. A lot of times people to get them on Amazon, you can get packs of bands or, weights or, kettlebells that have, you can get like one kettlebell that adjustable, and you can have it go from anywhere from 10 pounds to 40 pounds, and you can adjust that one piece of equipment instead of buying 4 different kettlebells or We have a question back here.
How about isotonic exercises where you're moving against an immovable object or pulling?
Yeah, like isometric. Yeah, those can be beneficial as well. We use those a lot in our practice for if people have pain, say they have back pain or pain in a certain area. We use a lot of isometrics to help with pain relief and to kind of start someone's strength journey, and it's a good place to start. And there are some exercises, especially a lot of core exercises that work isometrically. But yeah, we use it for pain relief. And we use it as kind of a starting point to start strengthening. And then the goal is ultimately we want then to progress you over time. So if you're only ever doing isometrics and we never progress you to anything stronger than that, then that's not going to be super, super functional for some of the things that you maybe need to do. For a core exercise like the suitcase carry, right, or holding some kind of weight at your side and working your core, that's an isometric, right? We're just holding that position. That would be helpful for carrying groceries. But if we don't ever strengthen a muscle through its full range of motion or through your full range of motion, then we're not getting the most out of it. So there is a place and a time for isometrics, but we ultimately want to progress you over time and get you as strong as we can get you. Any other questions? Lovely. Well, thank you. We're going to hang out up here a little bit. If anybody has any other questions, you can come on up. We have some cards up here too. If you have any questions about nutrition, resistance training class, PT, anything, please feel free to come up and chat with us. Thank you guys for coming. Appreciate it.